Hey there, YouTube. So I'm going to be making a response to spawktalk's video, which itself was a response to the LearnLiberty channel's top 3 myths about immigration with Benjamin Powell. Alright, so spawktalk says that Ben Powell misses the point because he talks about all immigration and not just the poor, unskilled Hispanics. And to this, I would say that's not completely accurate, because Benjamin Powell actually does address that in the video. He says that Americans tend to have a lot of people in the labor force who are, in terms of their skills, in the middle, whereas immigrants tend to come from very high-skilled backgrounds and very low-skilled backgrounds. So it's kind of like he has this little picture that kind of goes like so, right? And then the skills of the higher and lower skilled immigrants actually complement the middle skilled people of the U.S. Yeah, it's still even the lower skilled people that come and help us, because they take jobs that U.S. citizens will not take at wages that are profitable, or at least they will take the same jobs but only for higher wages, and in some cases won't be profitable. And an example of this is Georgia, where they passed a law that was similar, I think, to the one passed in Arizona, and it already made migrant workers started wanting to leave, and my understanding is that some of them were being harassed and stuff like that. And this also was as close to a natural experiment as you can get, because people announced it ahead of time and stuff like that, and it was too quick for really anything else to change. That, at least that's the gist of what I got from my reading on the topic. So basically, all of, or at least most of the labor shortage is due to that law in Georgia. And they already tried hiring people from Georgia. They don't want to take those jobs because it's too hot and it's temporary work, and it'll be $12.50 an hour. Let me just read a little bit from this article here. It said they tried using signing bonuses and stuff like that. This was from May of this year. It said, okay, the law doesn't take effect till July 1st, but it is already making migrant Hispanic farm workers skittish. Let's see, blah 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 blah. Where is it? Oh yeah. Farmers said the full extent of the shortages won't be known until the coming weeks as they harvest the remaining crops, including watermelons and sweet corn. Hall estimated such shortages could put as much as $300 million in crops at risk this year. So they're expecting $300 million in losses. But yeah, there's just proof right there, or at least an example of one of these laws leading to labor shortage. And that goes to show you that there is differences in their skill levels and also in what they're willing to do. What else did I wanted to say? Oh yeah, and spawktalk says that most of the politicians or whatever in the debates and candidates are talking about the low-skilled immigrants. I'd agree. I think most of the candidates are talking about that. But I was watching on TV the other day, or even today, there's commercials like on CNN and stuff from this FAIR group, right? That's the name of the group or whatever, FAIR. And they actually want to slow down all immigration into the country, including the legal immigrants, because they're typically higher skilled. And so the commercial makes the case that, unemployment's high, so therefore let's not have immigrants with higher skills, because then they'll just start taking the jobs of people with higher skills who are U.S. natives. I think that's horrible all the way around. I think that immigration should be just determined by the labor market, and that's about that. That's my opinion on that. So yeah, as we can see, the low-skilled immigrants, take jobs that high-school dropouts take. High-skilled immigrants tend to be like doctors and lawyers and stuff like that. So we benefit from both of them, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. We benefit from both of them. In terms of, you could make an argument that the video with Benjamin Powell did not look at the data for illegal immigrants, and that is a problem. But I think it's just going to be hard to ever get those kind of estimates, because we don't really know how many illegal immigrants we have, and the best we have is just estimates, because of course they don't want to get caught. But I mean, I think anyone who's been around a border town can attest to that they do a lot of the unsavory work. Anyways, let's see what else. Also, spawktalk mentions the unemployment and how the graph shown in the video from the LearnLiberty channel is not, a very strong graph because there's so many other variables that affect unemployment. Now, I agree that there are many variables that affect unemployment, but in a way, that's kind of the point of. I think that's the point Benjamin Powell is trying to make. It's that even if, right, it's unclear really whether this would, whether immigration would per se increase unemployment because the division of labor and comparative advantage and all that kind of stuff. So it's not clear, and that thus becomes an empirical issue. But obviously, if you just tracking correlation over time is not really holding things constant, but in a way it makes the point that even if it's been making unemployment higher, it really isn't that big of an effect because it's been swamped by all of the other things that we've had in society and in the economy that help keep unemployment low. And so that's worth noting. It's worth noting that even with all of this immigration, that's not enough to really make our unemployment a lot higher, or at least higher even by any significant measure. Let's see. Okay, spawktalk also mentions the aggregate demand effect, that if immigrants send money out of the country, they send remittances that lower spending in our economy, lowering the aggregate demand and increasing unemployment. I don't really think this effect is really large. If it were, we would see during the aggregate demand shock, you see counter-cyclical wages. So you would see unemployment go up because the real wage would spike up. And I don't think we really see that. Another thing is that, of course, they're sending money over there to other countries. This is reflected in the exchange rate, and the exchange rate is very flexible. So that price is always changing. So that's another thing right there. I think that probably helps, mitigate things like that in terms of trade policy and things like of that nature. And another thing is he makes a really good point. spawktalk makes a good point that Benjamin Powell says, well, really the only people who are hurt by immigration are the poorest Americans. And I agree, that's not a very good point. But the real point, I think, right, is not so much that those are the only people that are hurt. That's only part of the issue. Yes, those are the only people that are hurt, but another thing is that most U.S. citizens are not high school dropouts. So you're not hurting a lot of people, even the ones that are being hurt. And then the issue is how much they're being hurt. I'll put a link in the description, but there's a link there on from econ blog or econlib.org. Brian Kaplan actually takes info right out of, I forget what it's called, the Concise Encyclopedia of Economics, or maybe somewhere else, I forget. But he takes findings from Borjas's own work. And for those who don't know, Borjas is an economist that is very outspoken against immigration. And even his own studies find that, the most pessimistic numbers are, in the short run, the wages of high school dropouts, right, of America's most poor, are lowered by 8% by immigration. So we have all of this immigration here, and high school dropouts have their wages lowered by 8%. So that's not very big. That's not a very large cost, and it's not to a lot of people. In the long run, those wages are negatively affected by something like 4.5%. So again, it's not really a whole lot, and you're making a lot of people better off, those people who are coming here. Another thing I would like to say is I would imagine that this has at least some of this is because of the averaging effect. And the averaging effect is when you have a group of people, right, they're at a certain level of income, then you have new people enter and they're at a lower level of income, right? So these people now become counted as part of the whole group. So when you count the whole group, the average income goes down. Even though the people over here don't necessarily have to have their incomes go down. It's just the mere fact that these guys are counted now, that lowers the income of the group. Like, if you're looking at it as the group's income, right? In fact, these people might actually have their income raised by having immigrants come here and making us more productive. But as long as this, I'm not going to get too technical into the math, but hopefully I'm stating it correctly. But and you all be able to get my point. As long as this group here is large enough and is far away enough from the next highest level of income, it still pulls the average down, even if no one here is hurt. In fact, they could actually be benefited, and yet the group's income will still be going down. And so, another thing to take into account isn't just the wages of that particular group. It's also Pareto efficiency. It's that we should want, win-win situations where at least one person is made better off without making anyone else worse off. In real life, maybe sometimes we can't get that, and so instead we look at social welfare in terms of like total benefits or something like that. But yeah, I'd imagine that some of it is from that, and maybe not all of it, but at least some of it is, because the people who come here, the reason that high school dropouts have their wages lowered is because people who come here don't speak English, and a lot of them don't have high school education. And so therefore they're going to be earning less. Now, that doesn't always mean they're taking all of the same jobs. Maybe they do take some of the same jobs, but they probably don't take all of the same jobs, because suppose they don't know English. Well, even people who are here that are high school dropouts, they still know English. So that's already an automatic advantage right there. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. And I'll post in the link in the description for this, because I know spawktalk said that Benjamin Powell didn't mention where he got the source from, or where he had the data from the wages. So I'll post it here, and that's about it.